And welcome. If I were king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not prince, my regal robes of the forest would be satin, not cotton, not chintz, sang the cowardly lion in The Wizard of Oz. Can you imagine impeached President Donald J. Trump singing the same words? If not, do. Because that's what disgraced attorney Alan Dershowitz and the equally disgraced cowardly once lions of the Senate Republicans want you not only to imagine, but accept. That contrary to the Founding Fathers' wishes that decried the monarchy, America is a monarchy, and Trump is your king, beholden to no one, answerable to no one for his proven corruption. And that's just where we begin, this week on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, when I, Halli Casser-Jayne, and my partner in politics, former White House Correspondent Matthew Cooper, slice and dice the political stories of the week, and His Hiney, Donald Trump, too. Here we go. Good morning, Matthew. We waited and waited and waited because we wanted to make sure this story was at least somewhat complete as to where we were going to go with all of this. And here we are, February 1st. And I want to begin the show with condolences. First to the family of Mr. Wonderful Jim Lehrer. We lost a great one this week. And that's journalism will never be the same. Anyway, journalism's not going to be the same. I also want to wish condolences to the Republic. Last night, it died. And that's where I begin this morning on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show with Matthew Cooper today. So, am I overreacting? We had a vote. They didn't even allow witnesses. Sham trial. You know the drill. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's pretty bad. I don't know if it's the end of the Republic, but it won't be remembered, I think, as a shining moment in the history of the U.S. Senate. I mean, I think, there's not really much of a debate about whether you should hear in my mind, a couple of, witnesses in a trial of this import. And for the Republicans in the Senate to reject that so emphatically, for McConnell to fight it so deliberately is really something. But not surprising at this point. I never thought there were going to be a critical mass of Republicans to be interested in having witnesses, and so here we are.
So here we are. And cover up? Is it a cover up? Is that really?
Well, it's not a very good one in the sense that John Bolton, the former national security advisor, who is probably the most important witness that was being sought, has got a book coming out. It's leaking already. He's going to have to tour for the book. So, it's a cover-up only in the sense that it expedited the trial and the trial's foregone conclusion. But as Adam Schiff, the lead House manager, said, the truth is going to come out. It's just a question of when.
Well, I think that they made a choice here, and they said, yeah, the truth is going to come out, but better later than now, because maybe people won't be paying attention, maybe this, maybe that, maybe the other thing. I mean, that's why I think the word cover-up absolutely works here. They didn't have all options on the table because the facts are the facts, and there they are. It was just a matter how they, were going to let it sift out, if you will. Lev Parnas. It's another one. He sent a letter yesterday, I guess, to the Senate, and they said that he wants to testify, and he named names, and he named Pompeo, Rick Perry, okay, and Mike Pence. And I think this conversation is losing the fact that Pence clearly was involved. I mean, Bolton has, implicated him as well, and that's the reason, Matt, that I think they really are so hysterical, because I think they think if they get one, they're going to get the other. And then where are they? Nancy Pelosi. I think they don't think like you and I think, or like normal people think. These guys really are, into a world of deviousness that goes beyond anything normal people operate under. So do you have a thought of, Pence is involved, yes?
would seem so. Yeah. So I mean, look. I don't know all the motivations for wanting to get this trial done quickly and to do no damage to the president, but that's clearly, what McConnell and the Republicans en masse were doing. And so, all this talk about, Lamar Alexander and, all these others who are going to rise up and, demand a trial and maybe even think about impeaching him, and was never going to happen, didn't happen.
Right. So let me throw this one out to you. I think that the most dangerous man in the world is not Donald Trump. I think it is Mitch McConnell. And I think that's another mistake, by the way, the Democrats have made, because they should have made him portrayed him as the most evil thing that ever walked. This gets back into my weekly argument with the Democrats. They don't know how to message. They're on the right side. God knows Adam Schiff and his team did a remarkable job, but they don't. The DNC does not message, right? Or the DNCC or whatever, DCC, whatever they're calling it. How Mitch McConnell is truly a threat, the threat to the Republic. I threw it out back to you. Pick it up, buddy.
Well, look, he's pushed aside lots and lots of norms. The promiscuous use of the filibuster when they were in the minority, the Merrick Garland thing. Now this, I mean, he is the most effective majority leader, I think, since Lyndon Johnson. I mean, I think he is all elbows and he is all ruthless. And he is
all un-American. And all un-American.
Well, it is deeply disruptive, and I think it's very hard for Dems to keep up with him. And I mean, it's let me. He's ruthless.
He's ruthless, and ruthless is not always a bad thing. The problem is he's aligned himself with probably the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America. I mean, what Trump did and what Lamar admits that he did, and so many others, he did it, but it doesn't rise to impeachment. Actually, what he did is probably the most impeachable offense ever, and it's just utterly outrageous. The whole world should be indignant, by the way, because it affects everything and everybody. And this man, Mitch McConnell, for partisan purposes, says, I'm going to overlook that because the party matters more. That's a dangerous man. There is no right and wrong. And I think that gets into what's going on in Congress and the Senate for sure. There is no allegiance to the United States anymore. I began this with, goodbye Republic, but I don't think we can talk about that enough.
Well, I mean, there's no question that they are all in for Trump. I mean, there's a reason the only Republican to vote for the impeachment resolution in the House was Justin Amash, who then promptly left the Republican Party. There's just no stomach in the Republican Party for standing up to Trump.
So we have a corrupt party of our two-party system. Think about that, Matt. I mean, here's what frustrates me at this point is, I watch the cable shows, and Well,
that's your first problem. But yeah.
True. Yeah, but there it is. And, if you watch Fox, it's completely off the wall. First of all, they didn't even want to cover the impeachment and the process and any of that. So, I mean, so that's just a circus over there. And I would be embarrassed to call myself a journalist and park my butt over there. Anybody. But what you're watching on the other two who lean supposedly left, I mean, there's not enough indignation. It's like, here's what there's
not enough indignation on MSNBC.
No, there really isn't. I mean, the closest I saw was Claire McCaskill yesterday. She started to get pretty irate, but everybody else is very measured and it's like, I'm watching what happened and forgive me. All I kept thinking is we're turning into a monarchy. All bets are off. We'll talk about Alan Dershowitz in a minute, who upended everything. And nobody's taking to the streets. I mean, this is how banana republics become. This is how why forget women's rights, forget, whatever, blacks' rights. The Republic is on trial here and about to lose, and nobody is getting irate and on the streets. It's like people are just numb. And they tweet, but they don't do anything. There's no action. Where's MoveOn.org? Where's the women's movement? Movement, whatever that thing was called. Well, I'm sorry. I just think this is really big time stuff and terrible things are happening, and I just don't understand the American people who are just tweeting.
Could be. Can I do my could be?
You don't want to go there with me, do you?
No, well, I'm just trying to follow up, but you're right. There's no mass movement in the streets.
And wouldn't you think this
true.
would be a time to be? That's, if not now, when?
Yeah. I agree. There were not, I'm just trying to remember if there were any really big street demonstrations in the throes of Watergate. I don't think there were.
But Watergate was different because we'll see where it was going. And you didn't have this bipartisan crapola. I mean, ultimately they broke because, when you find out somebody's done something bad, they have to pay for it, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. And that obviously was not what was going on here, which is just absolutely terrifying. I mean, yeah. So I think that's a dangerous sign too for the Republic.
Yeah, there's no question. I think that this will, embolden Trump, not deter him. So,
I have a new name for him.
What's your new name for him?
Your Royal Hiney. I have a picture of him. I have a picture of him sitting.
Oh, God.
No, listen to me. They're calling him a monarch now. I don't remember who it was, but somebody of ilk said, this what we have left now is a monarchy. And I have a picture of him sitting on his throne tweeting. And I said, the only throne he's ever going to sit on, but his Royal Hiney. You know what? If he plays dirty and disgusting, Matt, being circumspect is not gotten the Dems through the Mueller report, through this, where they need to go. I just think, I don't think we give up the norms in terms of, process. But I do think you have to start fighting back on some level where his low level, that old, when they go low, we go high. No, absolutely no. I said the most dangerous man in the U.S. was Mitch McConnell. Maybe the dumbest is Alan Dershowitz. Oh, God. Did you watch that? Did you listen to that?
I did. I did.
Your thoughts?
I thought it was really bizarre, and it just didn't make any sense. His argument was that any president running for re-election sees his re-election as being in the national interest, and so anything he does to further his re-election is not impeachable. That's what I understood him to say, and how other people understood it, and it seemed bizarre. I mean, it seemed to allow an infinite range of crimes on the president's behalf.
Well, he was saying the president is a monarch.
I mean, it sounded that way. I'm not an attorney, but it definitely sounded that way. And, it's, as Dershowitz acknowledges, he's done a 180 from thoughts he's had in the past. In a month of bizarreness, this was one of the more bizarre moments. And, I don't think he's distinguished himself.
No, and I thought it was really interesting that he wasn't in the well the next day. And he said it was because he had Super Bowl tickets. And, boy, I'll tell you, I think that they were just trying to it was even a bridge too far for the, Republican team, the White House team, that he went overboard so much. And, what's that old saying? Everything Trump touches dies. Goodbye, Alan Dershowitz. You're gone. Go enjoy your house on Martha's Vineyard. No more parties. You're finished.
Yeah, he's not really distinguished himself this week. So,
which is a whole career blown. There's another one, a whole career. Goodbye and good luck for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So sad. The other one you could go through every senator and every word that they said on the Republic. It just got more and more insane and more ridiculous. I mean, Rubio, what in the world? Impeachable actions don't necessarily mean remove. I mean, and he just went into this crazy like a snake, trying to fit through a skinny little hole. It was a disgrace. Behind all of go ahead if you want to say something. Go ahead.
No, I think there's always been anyone who would criticize Trump in 2016, people keep thinking, oh, Ben Sass, Rubio, somebody, Cruz, but in the end, they're all on the team.
I'm glad you brought up Ben Sass. You remember how vociferous, wrote a book, Holier Than Thou. They just shut him up. Shut his little...
Yeah, well, he's up this year, yeah.
I mean, but they really shut him up. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he
went from being...
He's all in.
Yeah, so, I mean, wow, yeah. And it gets back to that question, what does Trump have on all of these folks? I mean, just what? Because, they're not thinking. The Bolton situation, talk to us about that. Give us a little background on that, and then let's get into some of the weeds there. I think it's important. Who is John Bolton?
Well, just to address what you said before, I don't think Trump needs to have any dirt on people to get them to do this. They're playing a logical game about the Republican electorate. He's immensely popular. They have to go through primaries. They're not going to challenge him. They don't need to be subject to blackmail.
Okay, let's go through this. Okay, but let's go through this. It used to be that a president of the United States molded the audience, the people, molded we the people, took them gently down the road to where he wanted them to get, took all of them down the road to where he wanted to get. Once they were elected, it wasn't, Republicans and Democrats. It was, let's get as many of those people to think the way we think, and let's cajole them to it, which is exactly what Trump never tried to do. I always said that he had two choices when he got elected. He could have brought the country together and been a hero and, oh my gosh, and he's a new kind of president and gone on to great things. And instead he divided to conquer. I think that's at play here too. And I think that's a conversation, well worth having. Equally, the senators could have done the same thing, or a representative, go into their districts and help these people find the right way. And not to succumb to this crazy. So, to me, that's not always an excuse for, I'm running and here we are. They gave up their power to Trump and to that kind of thinking. There's that conversation too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's just you've said this time and then on earlier occasions, what does Trump have on them?
Well, I do think he does. And, uncertain people.
I don't think he needs.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
He may not, but I don't think he needs to. Would that it were so simple, Anyway, John Bolton. Here we are. The former national security advisor, left on bad terms with the president. He is, with Trump trashing him in tweets and whatnot. He's got this book coming out. Clearly, he's saying in the book that Trump pressured him on Ukraine. And, it carries a lot of resonance because, Bolton was a big hero to the right for a long time, at least pre-Trump, and a super hawk. And so, his word's a certain weight that it might not coming from just, an establishment national security type like his predecessor, McMaster. So here we are. And, as I was saying earlier, Bolton is going to talk more. He does have this book coming out. I think it's number 2 on Amazon in pre-order. And, it's impeachment may be over, but the discussion of what happened with Ukraine and Bolton is just starting.
And what's interesting, two things. One is, I don't know if this book is ever going to come out, at least as long as Trump is around. There's already talk of craziness going on with, forget, the right to free speech. They're trying to shut this down in a big bad way, and they're accusing him of putting, top grade, secrets in the book, which,
Right.
and Bolton's had, I don't know how, 8 books out, I think, prior to this, and we know that he didn't do that, and he's no fool, but they're going to play the game. So, that's it. But John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, said, wait a second, if you're going to believe anybody, I believe, Bolton. How is it? And then Fox, where he used to be, by the way, a Fox performer. Notice the word performer.
Right. Sure. That's how he got the job.
They eat him alive. Goodbye and good luck. I think one person, I can't remember, Brian, whatever his face is, might have come to his defense and said, no, wait a minute, I know the guy. But the fact of the matter is, these guys eat their own and follow it with fava beans and a big glass of Chianti. He's got the goods. And it's like, okay, they're going to shut him down. Why the heck didn't this guy speak? And by the way, it's not too late. He's got till Wednesday. I mean, that's the part I don't get, because he's got no career in the Republican Party unless he hopes that he straightens it out and he comes back the big savior.
I'm only speculating because I don't know, but I mean, he's he really, really, really hates the Democrats, and I think he wants to
have his cake and eat it too.
Be seen, and I think he wants to be seen as a reluctant witness, and but he wants to be a witness, and I just don't think he was willing to, be seen as cozying up to the Dems. So he is playing this game.
No hero here.
Yeah.
Another one. No hero here. I'm going to break to something a little bit different, and then we're going to get back to the lack of heroes, because something did happen yesterday that I thought, and came out of Bolton, is that in his book, apparently he says there was a meeting in March where with Giuliani, and at that meeting, apparently Bolton testifies in his book that Trump asked him to go to set up a meeting with Giuliani, with the Ukrainian president, the young new Zelensky. Who else was at that meeting? The White House lawyer who represented the White House / Trump in the trial, Mr. Cipollone.
Right.
Okay. Now, see, this is where I think the Dems have a problem, because that came out in the morning. The first thing I would have done is gone, if I were, the Dems, I would have gone to Chief Justice Roberts and said, whoa, yeah, here we have some allegations. We don't know whether they're true or they're not, but they are out there. And maybe this Mr. Cipollone needs to be, removed until such a time as what's being said can be proven not to be true. Because if he's not, and it is proven true, this whole thing is a sham. Now, of course, I doubt that the Roberts would have done that, but it would have been on the books. It's a mistrial.
Right.
He's a material witness, and he never identified himself as a material witness. Calling the Bar Association BAR, calling the Bar BARR Association. Not that the BAR Association.
Yeah, I got you.
You got it. I got you. Aren't I clever? I'm so clever. It. I mean, oh my God. That to me was like a lost, oh my gosh moment. And this is why I said they don't, in some ways, the Dems just don't know how to play it, the way that the Republicans would have played it. Yeah. Your turn.
Agree. Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I think they could have made a bigger deal of that, and
it's a
going
big
to
deal.
Roberts would.
It's a
going to Roberts. I mean,
wow. I mean, what if that comes out to be true? Seriously. I mean, that to me is open up the impeachment hearings again, because they were, we didn't have all the information, and it affects how the impeachment goes. I mean, there are no rules. You can make your own rules on this. It's all so vague.
No, there's a look, and the Democrats, can continue to investigate in the House. They don't have to stop.
Oh, well, they will. Don't you think they'll pull? I mean, they need to do Benghazi. They need to hire Trey Gowdy.
Yeah, I imagine they'll, I imagine Schiff will keep going here.
And what about getting Trump to testify?
Yeah, well,
Can you call a president to Congress?
You can call them. They don't have to come. I mean, Ford voluntarily went, but that's like the only time it's happened. It's just not a parliamentary system, so I don't think you can really make. No, you can't make Trump testify.
You can create the crazy. You can create the spectacle of requesting it and letting him go through his, I can't even talk anymore about all this, go through his crap to stay at, because he doesn't do anything. He gives no, and he's, his Royal Hiney doesn't have to, thank you to, Mr. Dershowitz, he doesn't have to give anything to anybody anymore and just say, I'm king. But there's another place that I think they need to play it, and it would be wonderful to play.
Yeah.
Well,
they can. I mean, just as they didn't use anything from Mueller in the impeachment, I don't know if what they're gonna do.
Well,
next,
lessons learned. Lessons learned. And kudos, by the way, to a remarkable Adam Schiff. Oh my gosh. I mean, Clarence Darrow, move over. That was remarkable. Day in, day out. The guy was, I thought, brilliant. Just brilliant. And I know that people are, say, well, maybe they screwed up and they should have gone for, bribery and for high crimes and misdemeanors or whatever, or they should have, waited till they got their thing back. No. They did what they had to do in order to bring it to this, where we are right now. And, one thing that they did create, I think, are remarkable campaign ads for the Democrats. You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, on all your favorite apps. You'll find the podcast on your Alexa device, too. Just say the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Let's talk about Lamar Alexander. He's going to be on Meet the Press, by the way, tomorrow morning. And I mean, talk about a snake, slithering into all sorts of, no backbone and go through those holes in the cracks. So what'd you think of his, who did he say was his very favorite? He modeled his entire career on Howard Baker. Talk to me about that. I mean, because the whole thing now rests on what he said. He said that Trump is guilty, but not impeachable. They proved their case, the House, which was a kudos to him for at least saying that they did the right job. But he gave the Republicans the outs. And as he goes off into the sunset and leaves the Senate, what a bad choice. Because I think history is going to destroy him. What are your thoughts on Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a different path than what Howard Baker chose during the Watergate hearings when he began his tenure as co-chair of as ranking minority member of the Senate Watergate Committee, and was very much a Nixon ally. And then as the facts accumulated, broke with the White House. It's a very different path. Well, it's emblematic of the Republican Party now. I mean, Alexander has had an extremely long career. He was kind of known as the boy governor of Tennessee, one of the late 70s New South governors. He was Secretary of Education in the first Bush administration. He's been a senator for 18 years. He's almost 80, and he was in a position at the end of his career to push back on the White House if he so chose, and he really didn't. So look, there's no one more emblematic of where the Republicans are at now in terms of total capitulation to Trump.
It's really
but again, as I was saying, look at Tennessee, right? I mean, there's his fellow Senator Bob Corker, who did modestly stand up to Trump, was pushed out. replaced by Marsha Blackburn, one of the more enthusiastic Trump cheerleaders in the Senate.
Trump twirl girl. Did you see Bombshell? Trump twirl girl. If you haven't seen Bombshell, go see it. She fits the bill. Yeah. It doesn't matter. He was retiring, so he could have elevated himself. He could have been again another one he could have been a hero. There are no heroes there. Collins, she's pitiful. I can't see how she gets us another term. I just don't. I think the Dems are going to just annihilate her up there in Maine. Murkowski, I called it on her. I think in this particular situation. When she walked out and she said, I'm going to put eye drops in my eyes, which I'm sensitive to in these days. And I'm going to go and read and then whatever. I knew right then and there that she'd been given her orders. She was waiting her orders from the leader to, what she was to do. And of course she did it. So that, again, a lack of a hero. I do want to talk about Lindsey Graham for a minute because I think he now seems to be implicated in all of this. He was at meetings. He knew what was going on. He was in the middle of it. And which makes most total sense to me because he's with Trump every chance he gets. So hello. And there's another one who took his career and just turned it into a mockery. But I go on and on, don't I? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's another one who's up this year.
And should we talk about Rand Paul and my?
Yes. Well,
wow.
Yeah. Again, there's another one who had been personally savaged by Trump and who occasionally feints that he might oppose the White House on one issue or another, and then is utterly compliant. And this week, of course, was threatening to out the whistleblower.
And the Chief Justice wouldn't go along with it, which I thought was his one moment.
Question.
That was whatever. And I do want to talk about the Chief Justice in this respect. Not a bump on a log, a bump on a bench. But his great moment, Matt, the best moment of the entire hearing, was when they got him to have to read the line, "Take her out." The famous line from the Parnas meeting in which Trump told them, the ambassador, who, by the way, retired, oddly enough, yesterday, at the same time that we lost the Republic, and the Chief Justice was forced to read the line, and you could just see him going, "You mother," because that's going to be in a campaign ad too. I mean, my God. Yeah. So, I was very unimpressed. And particularly when he said I would not have broken the tie if it had been a tie. I mean, it's just, and there was precedent there to do it. So there you go. I think there were moments when he could have opened up a mouth, like all the testimony. I mean, the joke of it was the testimony about, Biden and Hunter, which was giving Trump exactly what started this whole thing in the first place. And I'm wondering whether somebody else who had been presiding over that hearing would have said, now, wait a minute, unless you can prove that this is relevant to what we're discussing here, your attacks on that are not acceptable. And I'm wondering whether another less partisan might have said that. So, you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know.
Irony.
That didn't bother me as much. I mean, it's, I think he gave both sides pretty good latitude. I mean, he didn't rule anything out. He didn't do anything. He just, and we're paying him to do nothing but to sit on the bump on a bench. A lot of people. Well, look, I think he is an institutionalist, and as is often said, I don't think he wanted to Bigfoot this trial. I think he wanted to keep a very light hand on the tiller, and that's what he did. And
I get back to what I said earlier, Matthew. I said earlier, these are not normal times, and if you start to see this happening and the crazy that's going on, And, all the Constitution being just cut to shreds. Who is big enough to say, we got to stop this? And one branch of government completely gave it up. The other took it all. And the third branch of government, the judiciary is all that's left to save the day. And it looks like they're going down the tubes with the rest of them. In which case I say again, why is nobody on the streets? I know you. This is Matt and Halli. Halli is the one who goes to the
right. Well, we'll see. If we're all behind razor wire in 6 months.
Well, I'm waiting.
You'll be declared right.
There are different kinds of ways to get behind that wire. So there you go. I'll tell you this.
I don't think it would have been helpful if, the Chief Justice ordered witnesses. Like, I'm just going to step in and say we have to have witnesses.
I think it would have been helpful.
Gesture.
I think it would have been helpful. I would think it would have been. Somebody somewhere, Matt, is going to have to say enough. And I don't know who that's going to be. Somebody has to rescue this country from these crazy. Are they fascists? I don't even know what to call them. They need to do that. Or it's not. How are you going to right the ship? How are you going to right the ship? I mean, we just had a fake trial. How are you going to right the ship? You just had a president in the United States admitted by senators who in every way broke the law, is a crook, is a criminal, and haven't done anything about it. And while you weren't looking, we're cutting Medicaid, Social Security, allowing Roundup to be used, which they know is killing people left, right, and indifferently. I mean, what? It's sickening to me. But okay, it's just sickening to me.
I hear you. Okay, one at a time.
Okay.
What's next?
I want to talk very briefly about one thing about this cable thing, which I do think is dangerous, and that is all of the cable channels, not just Fox. Keep giving the nuts the loudest voices because it's ratings. And at what point? And what do they contribute to what's going on in this country? And how do you stop it? And if it's everybody. I mean, CNN's got Rick Santorum talking a Looney Tunes stuff on there. I mean, come on. So I don't know whether that's a discussion, but it certainly, is where we need to go after that. Is censure an option? Is it a possibility? Could it save the day?
Well, everything's an option. I mean, the Democrats they could try to push through a censure motion in the House and it might pass, and then it wouldn't pass in the Senate, most likely. I mean, anything's possible.
Okay.
But that's going to feel really hollow after a failed impeachment.
But it does get something on the books so that he might not be so quick to be stupid again. And by the way,
the impeachment is the thing on the books.
But he is stupid. He got caught. He's not the great, brilliant people think he is. He got caught. Smart man wouldn't have gotten caught. He would have found a way to do it without getting caught. So Trump, you're an idiot. Besides being your Royal Hiney. Just okay. I can see that Matt is like, okay, can we move on? So we are going to move on. We're going to move on.
Well,
I can hear it. I know you.
They can. They can gear up to censure him, but I don't think Nancy Pelosi will do that.
Well, she's pissed. She's tweeted some things that are just like she is angry as all get out. So I'm good for her.
I think Twitter is you need to step back from the Twitter for a little while.
It's not the only place I go, but that she did wax eloquent on Twitter yesterday. So I want to move on to the Iowa caucuses, which are coming up on Monday, but I want to talk about this. I'm worried about Bernie Sanders, Bernie's bots. Something happened last night, by the way, at a Bernie rally, which is Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who's not my favorite person, led a chant of boos for Hillary Clinton. what in the world? And, people were asking me what my thoughts were on Bernie. Well, I've never been a Bernie fan. He's way over at some place I don't go. But I found out today he spent like $1 zillion in the last 3 weeks, and Biden spent almost nothing comparatively, holding on to his cash for a later time, apparently. And that does make a difference. But Bernie, to me, is the opposite of Trump. He's like the Dems version of Trump. And is it, you give Bernie the nomination because he's the opposite of Trump. And that rally last night turned into a Trump type rally. That's crazy. And I also, if that's not what Bernie wants to be, Matthew, I think what he needs to do is get out there today and say that is unacceptable. So far he hasn't. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think he will do that. The booing doesn't help the Democratic Party. On the other hand, Hillary Clinton did inject herself in the race with some extremely pointed comments about Bernie. So the fact that a Bernie ally would, go after her shouldn't be that shocking. I mean, there was context for her. They weren't just booing Hillary out of the blue. Hillary went, bonkers on Bernie the other day.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's not helpful. It's the same kind of ginning up crap that makes the people crazy and turns them into, things that.
Yeah. Well, look, I think Bernie seems to be in a role here on the almost eve of the Iowa caucuses.
Actually, this morning, the poll with Biden was up by 2 or 3 points this morning.
Yeah, I don't think we really know till
exactly.
we know. I mean, I think his people are more dedicated caucus goers than Biden folks. So let's see, caucuses are special animals. And
well, how about that talk between Biden and Amy joining forces? Interesting.
Yeah, if true.
If true.
If true, but we'll know soon enough. I mean, I think no matter what happens in Iowa, Bernie's got a lot of money that he can keep refilling, whereas Biden's already hit up a lot of high donors already that he can't go back to. Bernie's got a big national organization. He's got a lot of people in California already.
Do you think and let's just for fun's sake say Bernie gets the nod. What do you think happens between he and Trump?
Well, I think the conventional wisdom that Trump would, really beat him solidly is probably right. But, you have to allow the possibility that this are crazy times. You don't totally know. I mean, generally, I think a socialist would be in trouble, and someone who takes their honeymoon in the Soviet Union would be in trouble. But these days, that might be an area of common agreement between Trump and Bernie. So, I don't know. I think he would lose to Trump pretty easily, but I don't know.
And how do you feel Biden's doing right now? I think he's deliberately, he's in some ways treading water, partly because he had to, because of this crazy that was going on in Congress. But, I think
South Carolina can't go. Yeah, I think South Carolina can't come soon enough for him.
Right. However, people who I speak with, my go-to people, say to me, he may be past his prime. I'm not sure how I feel about him. I keep getting, and from people, who are baby boomer types, who would be the people who have been supporting him are concerned. So that meme that Trump got out there that he's too old and he's too feeble, is making a dent. So I'm going to bring up this name, Mike Bloomberg, who the DNC just changed the rules for so that he can enter the debates if he so chooses, I suspect. Spent $188 million in the fourth quarter and is going up the charts. I think keep all your eyes on Mike Bloomberg. What do you think?
Could be. Could be.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I still think it's tough for him in primaries. I still think that's not where the kind of Democratic is going to go. I think if this is basically, he's just going to become a super PAC rather than a candidacy.
But he will be, the person who can coronate the kingpin because he's got the money.
I think I think clearly he's going to just throw a lot of money behind defeating Trump. I just don't. I still don't see that. Him getting to Milwaukee and getting the nomination.
I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say.
I wouldn't rule.
No, that's what I was gonna say. I would have ruled him out, 6 or 8 weeks ago. I'm not ruling him out now, so that tells you something. But I find him he could be the compromise candidate out there to do his thing. So on Iowa, anything else that you wanted to talk about? Oh, well, I suppose we should say ta-ta to Elizabeth Warren.
Well, I don't think we know yet where she comes in and what happens in New Hampshire in their backyard the following week. But the Bernie surge, comes at her expense. I mean, we haven't discussed Amy Klobuchar.
Well, I did say her name. She was next on the list.
Sorry, missed that. Yeah.
Amy. Okay. Talk to me about Amy. You want to talk about Amy? Talk.
Well, I've always said I thought she had a chance at a surge at the end. A couple of weeks ago when she wasn't surging, I thought she'd missed her moment, but there does seem to be some really late movement. There's a logic to it. When you don't get attacked, someone can come up from behind because they're not getting smeared. And she's in that position right now. But, look, you saw a big AP story recently about a case she prosecuted when she was the lead prosecutor in Minneapolis. I think people are going to start to go after her big time if she does surprisingly well in Iowa. So she'll have her moment in the sun here.
Yeah, that case is kind of ugly, and it's a mess. And so we'll see whether that percolates to the top of the conversation. My thing about Amy is this. I think she's certainly, first of all, she's vice presidential material if she's anything. She's not presidential material, I don't think. She doesn't have that leadership quality, whatever. But she's likable enough. So. She's an interesting person. Let's go to Jerusalem.
Yes.
And Jared's peace plan and Mr. Netanyahu. I find this fascinating. I'll let you go first for a change because I always say, you tell me, what do you think of Jared's peace plan?
Well, look, I guess
that's interesting.
I share the criticism of the longtime negotiators, in the Middle East, like Aaron Miller and others who did it for Bush and Clinton and Obama. It doesn't really get you anywhere. It's, yes, it's intriguing because the Gulf states were either quiet or mildly supportive of it. It did get embraced by Gantz as well as Netanyahu. It's probably reflects some of the reality of what would happen in a peace agreement. I mean, in that sense, it's not totally laughable, but just the whole fact that they created it without any Palestinian input, that they put the capital of the new state in a alleyway. They offer up some territory in the desert. I mean, it just reflects the fact that there is no peace process. There is no peace process at the moment, and as you've said, maybe this isn't the right time for it anyway. But look, I think Jared is arrogant, feckless, doesn't know anything, and and doesn't know enough to know what he doesn't know. and doesn't care what he doesn't know. And so, I think it's as Brett Stevens said, it does look like a bad MRI scan of a kidney, of a diseased kidney.
I don't know.
You're in stage 4, but you think this is actually there's actually some good here, and this really reflects reality.
And that's it. It does reflect reality. And, every time something's put out there that just ever so slight,
right?
No, but it's always going to get shot down. But when you put something out there that's ever so different than the time before, give it time and it becomes part of the meme. I mean, come on, whoever thought that they'd make Jerusalem the capital, whether it took Trump or not, or who, what was the other thing Trump did? Every little thing starts to change the reality on the ground. Look, my friend from the Jerusalem, who was working for the Jerusalem Post, who I've had on the show a number of times, Martin, he was always the smartest of all of them, which is the only reality here is that you're going to have to give money to each of these Palestinians and send them over to Jordan, which they'd be much happier living in anyway. And that's going to be the conversation at the end of the day, whether it's 50 years from now, 75 years, or 100 years, because they're never going to live in coexistence, and the Israelis are never going to really give up, what they call their own land. Not going to happen. So, but I didn't think this was the boondoggle or crazy that people think it is. I just think it was but what it was, Matt, was political at the moment, because there was Netanyahu, who was about to be indicted and was asking for immunity, and he gets Gantz, his rival for the next election, to come to Washington. And while he's in Washington playing his game, Netanyahu calls back and says, "I'm withdrawing my request for immunity." And Gantz is sitting there like an idiot. Oh, it's like, it was a brilliant move on Netanyahu's part. And then Netanyahu gets to have the great day with Trump. So, there was the politics of it too. And then we can get into the question, can Netanyahu survive? And nobody knows for sure. None of this answerable at the moment, right? So, but we put it in there. Coronavirus. So I think we need to talk about that just to say, because I think it's scary. But do you think it's scary? I think it's scary. It's always scary when you have a virus that they can't contain. And I don't think the Chinese are telling the real story. Okay, your thoughts?
Well, a deadly virus, bad. We don't like deadly viruses. I'm sure the Chinese are,
they're shutting down cities, honey. I mean, it's like, I think it's a lot worse than they're letting us know.
It could well be.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked by that. I mean, your greatest threat as an American is still just the regular flu. So, all the things you would normally do, wash your hands.
Right.
Do all that stuff. But, look, someday there's going to be a really big pandemic. And if it's not this time, it's going to happen.
It's coming. There's no question it's coming. While you were busy, Attorney General Barr replaced the district court head guy, Mike Flynn, who was supposed to get jail time, suddenly isn't up for jail time, and all sorts of shenanigans are going on with Attorney General Barr. Did you know about that?
I did see. This has been going on a while, right? Flynn was a cooperating witness, wasn't going to get much jail time, if any. And he wasn't so cooperating. They threatened jail time. Now they're not threatening jail time.
And he's putting in a new district court crony in a high position. Right. This Barr. We're going to have to do a show on Barr. More troops are suffering from traumatic brain injury. It went from 5 to 50 now, and God knows how many are actually out there. And the president can have a lot of fun trying to get the vote of those folks who he said he was such a good friend of, the military. I don't think he's going to get that vote because this just gets worse and worse and worse by the moment. That's a disgrace. And somebody said, what would a guy who doesn't even know doesn't really have a bones or have to do with your brain injury? I mean,
right.
I mean, it's a sad story there. Another story that broke that I think is keep your eye on. There is a new whistleblower not getting a lot of attention, who came forward apparently because there was a Trump appointee who is interfering with the Trump tax audit. And it is actually under review by committee. Are you aware of this story?
No, I'm not. So
okay.
I really did miss it.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be important. And they've kept it quiet, but it would go under who's the judiciary? If it's not judiciary, it's not under Lindsey Graham's auspices. It's a different committee. And so the Republican and the Democrat are both working together to look in to see what the hell is going on there. But I think that's, keep your eye on that story. I think it's
interesting,
huge. And I'm we're going to close down on this, Matt. My thought on everything that's gone on here. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of recriminations. There's a lot of, well, we could have done this or we should have done that on this impeachment trial. I just want to make the point that I feel, which is the Dems did not fail here. The Republicans failed the Republic. And let's not lose sight of that. My parting words. Yours?
No, I'll echo those. I just don't think there was, it's the closing of the Republican mind. I mean, they just weren't, they weren't going to listen, and they were going to find a way to acquit one way or another.
So good night, George.
Good night, Gracie. Sad good night.
Sad good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.